and broadcast का मतलब है live.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Hayya ala salat. Hayya ala salat. Hayya ala falah. Hayya ala falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. The first verse I want to recite is 170, chapter 3, Ali Imran, verse 173. فَانْقَلَبُوا بِنِعْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَفَضْلٍ لَّمْ يَمْسَسْهُمْ سُوءٌ وَاتَّبَعُوا رِضْوَانَ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ ذُو فَضْلٍ عَظِيمٍ. So they returned with favor from Allah and His grace. No evil touched them. And they followed the pleasure of Allah. And Allah is the Lord of mighty grace. The next verse is chapter 16, verse 18. And although I will recite only this verse, But the whole of this section is relevant from verse 10 to verse 21, is relevant to today's topic. And verse 18 says, وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَغَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. And if you would count Allah's favors, you would not be able to number them. Surely Allah is forgiving and merciful. And in the previous verses, God says, I send down rain and cause vegetation to grow. And He has made subservient for you the night and the day and the sun and the moon and the stars. And then He says, He created for you earth with various hues and so on. And next one is chapter 31, verse 20. Alam taraw anna Allah sakhara lakum ma fis samawati wa ma fil ardi wa asbagha alaykum ni'amahu zahiratan wa batinah وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يُجَادِلُ فِي اللَّهِ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ وَلَا هُدًى وَلَا كِتَابٍ مُنِيرٍ. See you not that Allah has made subservient to you whatever is in the heavens and whatever is in the earth, and granted to you His favors, complete outwardly and inwardly. And among men is he who disputes concerning Allah without knowledge. Among men is he who disputes concerning Allah without knowledge or guidance or a book giving light. And the last one is chapter 30, verse 41, which says, ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس ليذيقهم بعض الذي عملوا لعلهم يرجعون. Corruption has appeared in the land and the sea on account of that which men's hands have wrought, that He may make them taste a part of that which they have done, so that they may return. I've recited these verses to you because these days, and perhaps I should have done this earlier when this conference was going on in Scotland, but I have come up with, it's not an entirely new idea, but it was in 1972 that a philosopher called Christopher Stone argued that the environment should be considered as a subject and given legal personhood, as granted to corporations, for instance, with human guardians able to seek redress if a natural feature is damaged or destroyed. And what happened was that there have been examples of this, that in 2017, an act of parliament in New Zealand granted the whole of Whanganui River the rights as an independent entity. So that river is now legal personality, considering it an indivisible whole from the source to sea. and that was a part of a treaty between government and Maori people. And the government then, or the Maori people then appointed guardians to speak on behalf of the river and enforce its rights. And interestingly, in 2019, Bangladesh became the first country to grant all of its rivers the same legal status as human beings. And from now on, or from then on, its rivers are going to be treated as living entities in a court of law. The landmark ruling by the Bangladeshi Supreme Court is meant to protect the world's largest delta from further degradation, from pollution, illegal dredging, and human intrusion. In fact, in India, one of the high courts in one of the states tried to give Ganga and Jamna the same status, but that was struck down by the Supreme Court of India. Now, this may seem a strange idea to you, but in a way, things to protect the earth have been done for a long time. Certainly since the time of the Holy Prophet, but even before, in pre-Islamic Arabia, certain areas were marked as being inviolable and protected. But in Islam, for example, Makkah is a protected area where it's forbidden to kill any living thing, thus ensuring the conservation of all of its living creatures. And now you see, that is interesting, because when we talk about living creatures, the first thing that comes to mind are human beings. And then we extend it to those things that move, like cats and dogs and horses and camels and mice and birds and so on. But then, if you take the scientific definition of a living thing, then trees and plants are also living things, not just you and me. And in Medina, taking this thing into account, in Medina, the Holy Prophet established a Hima ash-Shajr. Hima means a protected area. So that is Hima ash-Shajr, protected area of the trees. And that surrounds, it's 1300 kilometers. And the Holy Prophet forbade hunting or cutting down anything, any trees, any vegetation, nothing. It was to be left as it is. Many years later, we were, I think, in Florida, and perhaps Orlando or Miami or somewhere, and we went on this protected national park safari. And a tree had fallen, and it was lying in the middle of the road in that park. And the guy who was driving this vehicle, he took the vehicle off the road, went round the tree, and then got back onto the road again. And I asked him why. And he said the government is so strict that they say if a tree falls, you're to leave it where it falls. You're not to move it. Because if the road wasn't there, if you weren't there, that's where the tree will fall, that's where the tree will remain, and that's where the tree will rot. And this is the policy that park follows very strictly. But as I said, you see, I find it amazing that in Muslim countries, Muslim majority countries, such disregard is shown for the environment. Jungles and trees and everything is cut down willy-nilly, animals are misused and so on, mistreated. And yet, the Holy Prophet Muhammad specifically took these acts to protect animals, to protect trees. You can see this thing called Hima Ash-Shajr, the area where all the trees are protected. And so these areas, because nothing was to be cut, nothing was to be killed in those areas. So biodiversity thrived. And those areas were able to thrive as natural lands. And so you have, if you had hills and canyons and wetlands and so on. So the whole ecosystem is going to be preserved. Similarly, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam also established a protected area of grassland south of Medina, and that was the pasture land for grazing horses and so on. And it didn't end with the Holy Prophet Muhammad. Hazrat Umar Radhiyallahu Ta'ala, he also established a protected area where vegetation and trees and things and nothing was to be disturbed or cut down or killed and so on. And in fact, I learned, when I started looking into this, I learned with amazement that Imam Sayyuti, he has laid down conditions about who can establish such areas. And he said that this area can only be established by a governing authority, and it must solely be for the sake of Allah. That means for common good and not for private benefit. So, but he also says a protected area should not deprive local people of resources. So it's about sustainability. If you have fishermen living along the shores of a river, you don't stop them from fishing in that river, because then it would not be beneficial for the overall economy and so on of the whole area. And the condition that, Imam Sayyuti has set are very similar to conditions that you see in many places when you go to national parks. And you see these national parks all over the world now, in America, in Africa, in Australia, wherever you go. Now, my theory is this, that to be able to get legal protection, you have legal personality. A baby 3 months old, 6 months old does not have legal personality. So that baby can't have redress to law. But that baby can appoint a parent or a grandparent or someone to act on the child's behalf. Well, anyone under 18 really, doesn't have to be a baby. And in law, when you sign your claims, you say who you are. Are you the claimant? Are you a litigation friend? That is, the person is not able to directly approach the court for protection or whatever, but they are using someone that the law recognizes exists, is a legal personality. And you would say, well, that is fine, because, the baby is a human being, the person the baby is appointing is a human being. So what are you talking about? But what about corporations? What about charities? What about BT? BT is not a human being. But if I start using BT's lines without paying them, they'll inform the police and take action against me. How can BT, British Telecom, take action against me? It can, because the parliament decided that businesses who register with the government, basically Companies House, become legal persons. So how does BT then take action against anyone who violates its interests or whatever? It has a board of directors. That board of directors acts on behalf of British Telecom. It applies to any company, British Airways, British Telecom, IBM, Apple, Facebook, whatever. Because the law now says that company is recognized in law. Now, in a way, these companies, they're not living things in the sense that science understands them. So why can't we do the same thing to nature? Why can't we do the same thing to rivers? Why can't we do the same thing to lakes? Why can't we do, well, New Zealand has done it to his rivers. They recognize that river as a legal personality. So if someone violates that river's rights, if someone punches me in the face, it's a criminal offense. It can also be a civil offense. Police will take them to court. I can also sue them for damages. So in the same way, if someone pollutes that river can sue that person for pollution and damages and cleanup costs. So how will it be done? It's not that complicated if you think about it. How does BT do it? How does Apple do it? How is Facebook doing it? I think it's either Facebook or Apple who are suing an Israeli company. They have a board of directors to look after its interests. And you do the same thing. You appoint a board of directors, the board of guardians, whatever you want to call them, to protect that river's or that forest's or that lake's interests, so that if anyone pollutes that land, then they can be sued. There is, of course, another way of looking at this. If there is a minor and that minor doesn't have a guardian, what happens? Does the British government leave that minor to fend for itself on the streets? No, they don't. Social services take that minor to the court, and the court says, we don't know who this minor's parents are, and so on. So the court appoints itself as the child's guardian. So why can't we do the same thing with nature? Why can't we do the same thing with rivers and forests and mountains and lakes? Just like the court says that this is a parentless child, we are its guardians. Why cannot Parliament set up an institution, an organization that says a river can't defend itself, a forest can't defend itself? But these people, they're its guardians. And if anyone damages that river, even the sea, or the forest, or whatever it is, then these people will protect that area by suing whoever is damaging it. You see, we don't have to stop at rivers. Look at the rainforests in Brazil. They are a great source of absorbing carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen, keeping a balance in the air, but they're being destroyed. So why can't we take the same approach and protect the forests in the same way? Ecuador has done something similar. And there have been a number of cases where the court has given a judgment against the companies. There was a road being built, and that was damaging the river. So the court said, well, that road should stop, and the construction company should repair the river, put it back to the condition it was in before they started building the road, and so on. I mean, the fact that this was ignored is neither here nor there. So, human beings, you see, in the days of old, businesses weren't a legal entity. But for the betterment of society, the parliament passed a law saying companies can register with the government and become legal entities. Why can't we do that with nature, with the environment? We all know why, because it impacts on the economic interests of big business and rich people, and they will fight it. But then, if global warming continues on its present trend, then when countries begin to sink, countries like Mauritius and Bangladesh, they'll just be flooded by the sea. Then it will be obvious that something should have been done. But the question is, should we wait until then? Or would it be better for human beings to take some action now when there is a possibility of saving the environment and humanity? Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Qur'anil azim wa nafa'ana wa iyyakum bil ayati wa zikril hakim. Innahu ta'ala jawadun karimun malikun barrufur rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlilhu fala hadiya lahu. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma ansur man nasara dina Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam waj'alna minhum waqsul man khazala dina Muhammadin waqsul man khazala dina Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa la taj'alna minhum. Ibadallah rahmakumullah, inna Allaha ya'muru bil adli wal ihsani wa ita'i dhil qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsha'i wal munkari wal baghi ya'izukum la'allakum tadhakkarun. Uzkurullaha yazkurkum wad'uhu yastajib lakum wa la dhikrullahi akbar. Wallahu ya'lamu ma tasna'un.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Hayya salah, hayya falah, qad qamatis salah, qad qamatis salah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahmanir Rahim مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين
آمين.
إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده.
ربنا لك الحمد.
الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. تبت يدا أبي لهب وتب ما أغنى عنه ماله وما كسب سيصلى نارا ذات لهب وامرأته حمالة الحطب في جيدها حبل من مسد. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده.
ربنا لك
الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. استغفر الله. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا اللهم انكسر. Thank you for joining us for today's Friday service. I tried to come up with a new idea for environmental protection. Some of this had been proposed not very long ago, as I mentioned, in the last 5 years or so. I hope you found it useful, and if you have any ideas, I hope you will email us and let us know. In the meantime, with the prayer that whoever you are and wherever you may be, may Allah keep everyone safe and sound and free from harm. Assalamu alaikum. Khuda Hafiz. Goodbye.